is 8 freaking degrees outside. 8. What a heat wave. So, what am I going to do today? I suppose I'll tell you about my Cougar. Yes, why not? I bought this thing way back in 1982. Planted a bunch of sweet corn, sold it out of the back of my dad's truck in town, and earned a whole bunch of money. Dad kept most of it. Gave me $450 to buy this thing. My dad kind of borrowed my car a lot, took it to his job in town, so I didn't get to drive it a whole lot. Starting in 85, it was mostly broke all the time. Then I drove it until 87, 88, and then I went and did this, the whole military thing. I'd started a paint job on it in 87, and then life kind of happened. And I did the Air Force thing for a while, and got hurt in 2004, out in 05, and I was like, what am I going to do now? So I figured, hey, let's build some cars. So what did I do? I dragged this piece of junk. So let's pull the Mustang out of the weeds out of the farm, because it's been sitting there for 15 years. And when I entered into it, I was like, damn, this thing's a mess. Holy smoke. There's a bunch of rust here. This is a pit of despair. I got quite a bit of work done on it, and I'll do a video on that later. It's kind of a big project too. But it's not the one that I'm going to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about the Cougar that sat from 1987 until 2007. When we pulled it out of the farm, and it looked just like this. Yeah, 20 years of sitting without paint that I started the paint job way back in 86. How many people even still have their first car, let alone want to rebuild it after it sits for 20 years? I grew up with Dad talking about how he regretted selling his 64 Plymouth. It was a Sport Fury with a 426 wedge in it, not a Hemi. He bought it new off the showroom floor, and he's like, gee, I wish I would have never sold that. So I decided to keep my Cougar. While driving around looking for GTOs and Mustangs and whatever else, we came across one of these, a 76 Volare, slant 6, same color, same white top, just looked like a grandpa car or one of those balding guys, you know, like a clown car. I was like, nah, no. Mom was like, oh, that looks so neat. And I'd be like, hell no, I am not driving that piece of shit. Not happening. Just no. If I had succumbed to her pressure and actually bought that, I would not own it today. Guarantee. I would have had it crushed. The 76 Volare in those colors with a slant 6 is the automotive equivalent of vaginal dryness. Just no, it's not going to happen. I'll never get laid. I'd never have a girlfriend if I drove that piece of shit. Not happening. Yeah. First world problems. What car are you going to drive when you're a kid? Yeah. On the bright side, it's not a minivan or some other crap box or something that was forced on me. I actually chose a Cougar. Yeah, it was the coolest thing I could find that I could afford that wasn't bashed to death.
Get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Doing a little bit of flirting with copyright infringement there. I wonder how long I can go. I got back into doing the paint job that I'd started 20 years earlier. Sanded it all down and started looking for all the dents and bumps. Didn't find a lot of rust, but I found some really nasty dents, like the one here on the quarter panel. I just cut all that out, put a new piece of metal in there I got off the Mustang, and I need to do it again because it's been sitting outside a while, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, you get all this sanded down, you can see what you're actually working with. And then I took the front end off, and it was a nightmare. Not as bad as that Mustang, but it was pretty scunchy. Cleaned it all up, sandblasted it all up nice. Then I got to work on fixing the floor pans that were rusted out when I got the car. You just can't have an old Ford without rusty floor pans. It's not as bad as some of the cars that I got, but it had issues. Anyway, I got to primering finally and doing body work on it. And it started to come out okay. Then I painted it, and since it was my first base clear coat, I really kind of screwed it up. It looks good in the pictures, but man, the orange peel was something fierce. It was like worse than sandpaper, worse than a basketball, just really rough. And I wet sanded on it a lot, and then I figured out how to actually shoot right. I take better pictures than I do body work. My body work's pretty atrocious. Once I had it good enough to where I could actually see it looking like a real car again. Put an engine and transmission in, just a 2-barrel Cleveland with C4 that I had in it for years, rebuilt the trans, stuffed it in there, put the suspension back under it, and got to working on putting it all together, getting it ready to drive and everything. And then life happened again. To make a long story really short, I ended up having to work on the GTO instead. Initially, I didn't build this for me, but I ended up with the car. Now it's my summer daily driver, and I take it to car shows and stuff back home whenever I can. But this is about the Cougar, and it's been sitting since 2009, just like this. I've barely touched it. The only thing I've ever done is move it around the yard. I really need to get this thing moving again. It just sat here in front of the shop, taking up space, being in the way, covered with snow half the time. You look at a car that you have a history with, you just want to do something with it, but you can't yet. Life just keeps happening. I got rust I got to fix where the paint lifted up because it's my first paint job. You don't always do them the greatest. Well, what are you going to do? Paint it again. That's what you're going to do. That's what I'm going to do. I have owned this car for 40 years and I haven't driven it for 35 years. That's just sad. You guys need to harangue me until I get this thing in the shop and actually get it going. Come on, bother me until I fix my Cougar. Just keep hounding. I gotta do Pontiacs this year, but the Cougar has to go in soon. If I can get it in this year, get some work done on it next month or two, then I'll actually do it. And besides, I really need the content, and might as well do the Cougar too.